Hello everybody, how's it going, and welcome back to another video about Assassin's Creed Origins. We've got a little bit more information here after the trailer yesterday. I thought I'd leave it a little bit before covering it rather than just spamming out videos all day yesterday so I could spread them out, which is just helpful for me, it's helpful for you, everyone wins. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's hop into this brand new information. So the first section of news is coming from Edge magazine that talks about Assassin's Creed Origins. The first point states that the simulation of ancient Egypt is still set within Abstergo Industries' magical mystery memory box, the Animus. Now, a lot of people were confused by this because they thought it meant this game is set within Abstergo Industries' Animus, like within the Abstergo Industries' Animus. That's what they thought it meant. So are the modern days in Abstergo again? It's a bit shit, but that's not actually the case with this statement. It's literally all it's saying is it's still set in Animus, which we already knew. But I thought I'd clear that up because when I first looked at it, I was like, oh wait, what? And then I read it again and I was like, oh, I see. They're saying it's set within Abstergo Industries' Animus because they own the Animus, they made the Animus, they invented the Animus. But that doesn't mean we're within Abstergo Industries. We very well could be, but that statement doesn't mean that. So I just thought I'd clear that up. Next point is side quest cutscenes. As an example, will show Bayek as willing to playfully roughhouse with the local kids as Uncle Bayek. But at the same time, we'll also show him brutally ripping apart a wrongdoer. And that's, good. It shows the extent of Bayek. It shows that, he can go from being, this kind, friendly, understanding person to being this brutal murderer, and that there's a lot of depth to his character there, I think, which is interesting. Next up, Bayek's proto-assassin appearance was designed as a homage to Altair, with subtle accents of the classic assassin's white and red garb, which is nice. I did see that there's little flicks in there that looks like Altair, but it's different enough that it's not like, completely obvious. Next is, among Bayek's manipulation tools, the player will find firebombs, which is another thing we're going to be getting in the game. That sounds very Revelations-esque, which is nice. It's always good to have extra tools at your disposal, and especially little nostalgic ones like bombs, because Revelations is nostalgic now, even if the bomb system wasn't even great. Nostalgia is good, so nice. Next up is the skill to fast forward time in the game. It's called Dawn and Dusk ability, which sounds to me like that could be part of the skill tree, which is interesting, so that's cool. To create certain landscapes in the game, the team took hundreds of pictures of rocky terrain in the Nevada desert to reference when designing Origins sand sections. That's interesting. Why didn't they just take, if they were just taking pictures, why didn't they just take pictures of Egypt rather than the Nevada desert? Allowing the world to live, as Ishmael puts it, players might reach a camp where they find dead bodies and animals where maybe an hour ago there was a big fight. We accept the fact that you can just loot and leave or show up in the middle of a fight, which is good. So that means that there's a fight. The world is always living, so you could be there and see it, or you could just miss it and you could catch the aftermath to loot all of the corpses. So that's really cool and interesting. Again, they've been pushing this the world is always living thing, and I fucking love it. It sounds fantastic. And lastly, from Edge magazine, as already mentioned in the past, the time anomaly missions of Unity and Syndicate will not appear in Assassin's Creed Origins. There's a similar event though that Ishmael is loath to spoil. We have fun with the fact that we're not actually in Egypt, we're inside the Animus, but they're not time anomalies per se. Now, I don't know about you guys, but legacy missions, please. Thank you. And next up, we have some information coming from an interview with Matthew Zagurek, the narrative director on Assassin's Creed Origins. A couple of points he states. The first one is, the Order of the Ancients is a secret society in ancient Egypt. It is comprised of a lot of powerful men and women at kind of the top echelons of society who have high positions of power and for the most part are involved in politics, involved in religion, involved in economics, military, etc. Essentially, their goal is that they want to bring back a sort of strong dynastic tower that was kind of the glory days of former Egypt. He then goes on to say, when the story starts, Bayek is not an assassin, but he's sort of a proto-assassin. in the same way that the Order of the Ancients are sort of proto-Templars. In that sense, the organization and the ideals they have and the beliefs that they have are conceptually very similar to the Templars as we know them throughout the rest of the series, and kind of lead into a group that might be called that one day. Which is interesting, because I thought the Order of the Ancients was something new or something different, or the Instruments of the First Will, but turning out that they're just Templars, I feel that's sort of underwhelming, but it's interesting because they're not Templars necessarily as we know them. They're very different. They seem very more evil than they do, you know, maybe the Assassin's Creed 3 Templars, the Colonial Templars, or maybe the ones we saw in Assassin's Creed Unity. So it'll be interesting to see their attitude and the things that they do throughout Assassin's Creed Origins. Next up, he says, each member of the Order is responsible for their own sphere of influence / sector in society, and are spread out all across Egypt, which makes sense. Bike's going to be traveling all over to take out the various high-up members of this organization, of the Order of the Ancients, which we pretty much knew from the beginning. And as this kind of reveals itself, I think we're getting more and more of an idea of Bike's sort of motivation during the story, like we saw from the trailer, where obviously he gets kidnapped, and they're there sort of, I don't know, beating him up. I don't know why. We don't really understand that. Maybe it's got something to do with his DNA, because he's related to Desmond Miles, possibly, so has high Civ DNA. Who knows? But of course, that's his influence. Then he goes around taking out all the members of this order for, I guess, his own sort of personal vendetta, but also because he cares about the people of Egypt, and he can't stand to see them being controlled and manipulated like this. And the last thing that Sakura says is that the Order of the Ancients is looking for a means of control, and they're looking for a means of control of their country, and possibly extending that to other countries. But really, the focus is on Egypt, and they have people in positions of influence and positions of knowledge who are going to be tapping into some of the secrets and some of the hidden layers that might exist within that society, which is very interesting and mysterious. I would assume Pieces of Eden are going to be at play here a lot throughout this game. Like I've said, I feel like there's going to be a good few of them, so that could be possible. However, that is yet to be seen. Now, next up, we have a few more plot points, but these could be potential spoilers, you know, regarding things like the Apple of Eden and, you know, the different characters and their sort of roles. So if you want to go in entirely blind, then you can skip out on this bit and turn off the video now, but don't forget to hit the like button. But they're not huge plot point spoilers, they're just things that we sort of know, but they're sort of confirming and talking about, that gives us a little more insight into the game. But there's just a warning there, in case you do want to click off now. So, first up, Medunamun, I think that's how you say it, is part of the Order of the Ancients, and the wearing of animal masks is part of the visual signature of this order. The people who are part of it wear this kind of mask when they meet in public as a symbol, so, you know, it's just a nice little thing there to give them distinct, you know, sort of personalities, I suppose, which is just nice. The next one is Hetepi, I think? I don't know. With the Anubis mask, if it wasn't clear enough, is also part of the Order as well. Next up, concerning Medunamun and the Order in general, wielding an Apple of Eden, both in promotional images and the trailer, Sakura commented, "What I can say is that the primary purpose of the Order of the Ancients is to return to a strong Egypt. They consider that Egypt was more powerful in the preceding dynasties before the arrival of the Ptolemies. They think that the pre-existing system was much more founded on order, on the divine power of the pharaoh. In this perspective, they are looking for a means that are political, religious, military, and cultural, but also other means, if I may say so." He sort of dodged around that question a little bit regarding the apple, but there's a little insight nonetheless. Ptolemy the 13th will be the Order's puppet because the population believes in him and sees him as its leader. Obviously, we already knew that. Thus, the Order uses all of their power to influence through Ptolemy the 13th, the organization of Egyptian society, and so mysterious objects can indeed be part of this vast plan. But I will say no more because it's an important part of the story. Very, very interesting stuff. Can't wait to explore that in the game. Next thing is the Order is behind the expulsion of Cleopatra from Egypt. They even chose Ptolemy the 13th because Cleopatra is a much better strategist, and Ptolemy is more interested in the superficiality of power, which makes him easier to handle, which makes a ton of sense. Very much like Joffrey from Game of Thrones. Next, the members of the Order are scattered all over Egypt, and in antiquity distance mattered. There was certainly a central army and organization, but the concrete exercise of power was spreading solely in the country at the time for communication reasons, hence why the members of the Order can be found all across Egypt. And the last thing is, all the time when the story in Origins takes place, the Medjais are considered sort of like the sheriffs of the American Far West. That is to say, people who have a divine mandate to enforce order. Bayek in his hometown of Siwa is thus not seen as the official representative of the pharaoh, rather as a guarantor of the law. In Zikora's words, a Medjay like him could have spent his whole life in Siwa without ever seeing or hearing the pharaoh. His role as a Medjay at the beginning of history is above all local, so we cannot say that he has ever worked for the ancients, even at the beginning of history. Which is very interesting there, just a little insight into Bayek. So that's it for this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of this various pieces of information we got here. Might have got a little bit rambly in there, which I do apologize for, but that's all the information we have so far, nonetheless. Hit that subscribe button to stay up to date. Check out all my other videos on Assassin's Creed Origins, because there's simply too many, and I'll see you all next time.